Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm really excited about the topic today. Citizen science has been something very near and dear to me since I've participated in community science projects since I was 12. So I'm really excited to hear more from this panel discussion. Before I get started, my name is Ashley Studholm. I'm with the Prince William Conservation Alliance, and we offer all of these programs free of charge. And you can learn more by going to our webpage at pwconserve.org. And we have some nothing planned yet, but we'll have some fun upcoming events here in the near future. So do keep tabs on that. And you can see that either on our webpage, our Facebook page, or our Instagram. And I also just want to do a quick little plug that we've recently launched a new blog called Your Piece of the Earth, if I can get over to that tab. At PW Conserve Blogspot, where we just have some fun. Well, some of it's fun, some of it's just information about what's going on in the county. So you can check that out as well. Now, in terms of the events today, we're going to have the panel presentation, and then we'll open it up for discussion and community conversation at the end. Feel free to use the chat feature throughout the presentation, and then I'll loop around at the end, and we can open it up for questions and discussion at the end. And so with that, great pleasure for me to introduce our panel. We have Jessica Mccauley from the water quality, she's a water quality assistant with the Prince William Soil and Water Conservation District. Kristen Weaver is with us. She's Deputy Director, Globe Observer Project for Science Systems and Applications Incorporated and NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in the Greenbelt, Maryland. Thank you, Kristen, for joining us. And Susan Farmer. She is a Merrimack Farm Master Naturalist, an NWEE interpreter, retired Prince William County School science teacher, and co-coordinator for the meetup group Prince William Wild Things. And finally, Lisa Matthews. She is also a Merrimack Farm Master Naturalist and an enthusiastic citizen scientist and co-coordinator of the meetup group Prince William Wild Things. We are so honored to have you all here with us tonight, and take it away, Lisa.
So my friend and citizen science buddy Susan and friend Jess share this passion for citizen science with, hang on for a sec, this is not where I can see it, so hang on. With the eye for bringing awareness to the public of the need to monitor the health of our planet. We are so pleased to have Kristen Taylor joining us today to introduce Globe Observer to you all. Citizen science projects may include wildlife monitoring programs, online databases, visualization, and sharing technology, or other community efforts. Some of them can be done in the comfort of your home on your PC, or you can get it outside and collect data and even submit it for many projects via your smartphone. Take it away, Kristen.
Yeah, so one of the things that Lisa and I were talking about is the term citizen science, which has been around for a while, but now has a certain connotation with the word citizen. And so she wanted me to put a little bit in here about community science, which is gaining in popularity as not being quite as exclusive as citizen science. The intention of citizen science was just to contrast it with professional scientists, that you have, professional researchers who are paid to do it, and you have citizen scientists who are amateurs doing what can be very similar scientific work, but not on a professional level. But that's not as, it's not as popular these days to use the term citizen science. So community science is one you'll see a lot. The federal a lot of the federal agencies still use citizen science because that's what's actually in the laws that authorize some citizen science projects. But these links, there's a few organizations that are starting to really think about whether there's a better term. I think there is some sensitivity that it's not completely equivalent, that not all community science or not all citizen science is community science, that it really has to have certain characteristics, that it really has to involve the community maybe in the development of the project a little bit more, or in developing the scientific questions, and not just in collecting data to be termed community science. So it's just kind of an interesting thing out there. I think when using it, if you're talking to people about it, sometimes it's just about knowing the audience and what is going to resonate best with them. But so there's a lot more on this out there. There was a whole big thread on one of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology has a citizen science listserv, and there was about a 50 or 60 message like conversation that happened recently about this exact issue. So another term you might see.
Something we might want to avoid. Can we put up the polls, please, Ashley? So we'd like to
find out. So I'm going to launch poll number 1. You'll see it has 2 questions. 1, have you ever participated in a citizen science project? And 2, how many citizen science projects have you participated in? And if you would like to, you can list these projects in the chat. Go ahead and fill out your answers. And once I see most of, all right, looks like we got everyone. I'm waiting for a couple more. Then I'll end the poll and share the results. Okay, Lisa, go ahead and take it away.
Looks like we have quite a bit of participation in this group. Yay! I'm hoping that we'll be able to introduce you to some projects you haven't seen before, and some other search engines and things that you've never heard of. All right. Okay, take it away, Susan.
Data suggests that participating in citizen science helps improve scientific literacy and understandings among members of the public. In many cases, participants come away with a greater appreciation and understanding of the scientific process, and it deepens their knowledge of the topic that they're researching. This is perhaps one of the greatest benefits of being a citizen scientist. Not only do you provide useful data, but you can actually analyze it too. It's a great help to scientists who find it unfeasible to be able to collect and analyze such large data sets on their own because of time and resource constraints. Citizen science can also benefit the whole society and community. The results of this research has been used to inform local policies, as well as enhance formal and informal education initiatives, conserve natural resources, and even support environmental stability.
Personally, the benefit to me is the knowledge that my hobby benefits scientific research, and I learn more about the natural world from my participation in the projects. It is a purposeful activity.
The most common method is through data collection, like we said, but there are also opportunities for scientists and scientists like us, citizen scientists, to engage in data analysis or even develop the research studies ourselves.
For example, amateur astronomers have been contributing large amounts of data through their club activities where other amateurs are at hand to confirm sightings. It is exciting to see what amateur scientists can discover. I'll give you guys a minute to check that out. The phenology program is still in use today. It's just under a different name. Here in Virginia is the Virginia Breeding Bird Atlas, VABA. Volunteers collect data on migratory bird patterns and population figures and nest watches. For the Christmas bird count, an experienced birder leads a group called a circle of volunteers as they collect information about local populations of birds. More than 2,000 such circles operate across the United States and Canada. This wildlife census informs bird conservation efforts.
Lisa and I talked about how citizen science has really been going on for almost ever. Chinese farmers 2,000 years ago acted as citizen scientists, recording and sharing information about locust swarms coming up that would affect their crops. Citizen scientists and the projects that they're doing continue to grow. There are currently 3,000 worldwide projects, and you can see how they've been growing over time. These are projects that are added each year.
There's a broad range of projects that can attract a wide range of volunteers.
Okay, and this shows the proportion of some of the different projects. As you can imagine, a lot of them are environmental type projects or in the biology area.
Susan and I mostly participate in the contributive type. Just recently, though, I was able to work with Prince William County scientists monitoring amphibians, and we had an expansion on that project that I proposed.
Citizen science doesn't have to involve committing large quality or quantities of time to a research team. You can simply take pictures over time to help scientists gauge things like habitat and climate change. An example you've probably seen would be the photo stations that are set up in specific areas with signs that direct people to place their phones in a certain place and snap a picture of the same area. That area is photographed and then sent to the scientists, either by email or on social media, and then they can analyze that change over time. So that's a really simple way of getting involved. There's a new project. I don't know if anybody's heard about this, but it's called My Trees Count, and it's by the Virginia Department of Forestry. They're tracking tree plantings that you're doing maybe individually in your yard, or if the community is doing it, or a group wants to get together and do tree plantings. But every tree planted makes a difference to the health of the communities and the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And it's actually part of that Chesapeake Bay Watershed Act that we plant more of these trees. So for the next 4 years, if you do plant a tree, please get on this app and let VDOF know that you've done that.
Before the smartphone, data collection on wildlife was a bit labor intensive, using the atlas and filling out a lot of paperwork to pinpoint the location where you observe the animal. The internet, especially the smartphones, have enabled data to be sent instantaneously, including the exact location that the data was collected. Not only that, some smartphones even have a microscope function for the phone's camera. Who participates? Just about anyone can be involved. Even if you're unable to leave home, you can still participate in citizen science. Truly, there's something for everyone. Stewardship projects do include a data collection element. It's time now for the next poll question. Are you all familiar with bioblitzes?
Okay, so now we have which type of citizen science projects seem the most interesting to you? Stewardship, hands-on, at-home search type, or surveys of bioblitzes? I'll give everyone a couple moments more. Okay. I'll end the results, or end the poll, share the results.
That's very interesting. So most people want to get out there and get in the mud, which I enjoy doing that too.
Make a difference.
And I think we have another one. Do we have the one on bioblitzes? Or is that or later?
I don't have an additional one. The last one is...
Oh, for the caterpillars? Okay, so does everybody, can you just raise your hand, or if you're in the chats, have you participated or know what a bioblitz is? The bioblitz is an event that focuses on finding and identifying as many species as possible in a specific area over a short period of time. So we'll look at that in a little bit, one of the projects you can participate in. There are a number of search engines. You know, a lot of people don't know how to find one, a citizen science project. So we're going to visit a few. To start with, these three are great for folks new to citizen science. They all have a variety of opportunities in a range of abilities and age ranges. I like SciStarter for finding projects for kids. I found this one is the easiest for kids to use as well. Zooniverse connects you with projects from all over the world and many disciplines. They even have a daily Zooniverse introducing you to a new project today. This site is geared more towards adults. This is the citizenscience.gov. It has about anything you would want to know about citizen science. Not only does it present you with projects, it also links you to studies about impacts from citizen science.
And these resources are on the resource page, correct, Lisa? Are you sending that to them?
We're going to send you all these resources and the links to everything. We'll be sending that to Ashley tomorrow morning in case there was any extras you guys needed on there. Many of our institutions, private and federal, have their own pages. If you're interested in a specific one, you can visit their website and search for citizen science in their search. The Smithsonian has fascinating projects frequently across all of their museums. Art, aeronautics, space, and biology projects pop up. It's worth connecting to them to be alerted when a project comes up. For instance, the Stomata Counts project. Local Smithsonian scientists asked us to collect ginkgo leaves for them in the city to photograph using their electron microscope for this project. After a short training session, you go on to learning how to identify the stomata in the photographs and to count them, identify differences in their structures. It was really fun to be able to take the leaves to the scientists for this project. All right, and here's some of the kinds of projects we're going to introduce you to: medical and humanities, biological, and environmental.
Okay, I'll just quickly take a look at these three interesting projects and see how diverse they are.
Okay, biological. Cornell has a large variety of projects to participate in. A few ask for a small fee to participate to cover costs of materials. Most of them are free. The Great Backyard Bird Count is in February. Project Feeder Watch runs from November to April. Nest Watch runs from April to September. You can participate with eBird at any time. PWCA leads a circle for the annual butterfly count. There's also a pollinator week that many citizen science projects participate in.
And pollinator week is this week, isn't it? Or was that last week?
I think it was last week. But I think people are still participating.
And that annual butterfly count is coming up.
Yes. You guys have that on the schedule, right? Yay! If you want to do a plug, this is the time right now.
Oh, anybody's welcome to join us. And I think a lot of teams started a couple weeks ago. So the butterfly count's ongoing.
Oh, yay. So when is yours?
The third weekend in July.
Very soon.
Yep. Good.
In 1978, the North American Bluebird Society was founded to promote the recovery of bluebirds and other cavity nesters that were disappearing due to a lack of habitat, mainly tree cavities. Along with bluebirds, tree swallows, Carolina wrens, and house wrens frequently use the boxes and are included in the data collection. There are bluebird trails all over Northern Virginia. PWCA organizes 2 of the trails in Prince William County. Look for information to get involved in January and February for training dates. These trails are monitored in teams who monitor on a rotational basis. So the picture on the left is one I took for my trail. And here you go, Susan.
Okay. This is the iNaturalist app, one of our favorite apps, and I hope one of your favorite apps too. Even my grandchildren like to get on there and find out about, some of the things that they're seeing in the woods. It's a social network for sharing biodiversity. It's a joint initiative of the California Academy of Sciences, National Geographic Society. So this is for scientists, groups, and individuals, and they use it in many different ways. Okay, this is a research study that identified previously undescribed species in Mexico. Okay, here's,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Here's another way that iNaturalist benefits the scientific community. They rediscovered a fish that they thought was extinct. And that's just through observations of citizen scientists. Another good example is the phenology project. We've talked about that before, and we're going to include that again when we talk about caterpillars count. But iNaturalist has some basic phenology annotations. This particular paper used its own more detailed scoring along with iNaturalist and compared the different sources of data. Theirs repeats a lot more over time, but iNaturalist had a greater geographical scale, so it was really helpful to the scientists. This project on species interactions used iNaturalist observations to find out about disease in the community.
Natural selection and climate. This study looked at photographs and climate data to test hypotheses about the relationship between climate and wing coloration and inform experiments to understand the physiology behind the driver. We were going to be sending you a link to a blog where you can read more about this project.
Yeah, kind of cool. That's for people who are really good photographers and really enjoy photographing things. That one just happens to be on dragonflies, but the color actually changes based on the climate. So pretty interesting.
iNaturalist data has another life of downstream data use. The global, oh gosh, I missed this one. The Global Biodiversity Information Facility aggregates the data from many sources, including museum specimens. And this is a great place to explore if you're interested in other examples of data use. Okay, it's time to talk about the City Nature Challenge. So I don't know how many people have been involved in this. This is an old one. I guess it was 2000 or 2020 probably for looking at those dates. Yeah, it was 2020, I think. This is a huge BioBlitz. It is worldwide, and our area or region has done very well in its rankings. We have had just an enormous turnout for it, for our area, and we've ranked 10 in the country, or in the world, I think. No, in the country. We're 10th in the, no, I think this year we ranked 10th in the world for the amount of observations and participation. So pretty darn good. This 4-day BioBlitz gives a snapshot of the biodiversity of the planet. Scientists are using that, and researchers, to see what the phenology is of the plants and animals and how they changed. And we did have changes. We had a lot of species that were missing, and then we had about half as many that were new that we're seeing this time. So there is a change, and definitely there's an impact. Susan and I and several of our friends set up groups to go out and make observations for this event. The public is everybody's invited. We have also worked with the school district, presenting the project to science teachers throughout the county. I've used our meetup group to teach participants how to use iNaturalist so they too can participate in this fantastic worldwide BioBlitz. It's held the last weekend of April. Volunteers then help identify the species for 5 to 6 days after the observation days. And then we have a little party.
Okay. And the other thing that's kind of cool is if you don't actually see the organism, but you know that they were there by their tracks or their scat, you can also identify them on the app. I think that's kind of cool. Okay. We're really excited about this Caterpillars Count project. It's a project that measures the seasonal variation of arthropods, forest arthropods specifically, and how their change affects bird populations. So the Prince William Conservation Alliance at Merrimack Farms for 3 years has been working on this project, and we've gotten a lot of really good data, and it's really interesting. For the last 2 years, we've been doing one at Occoquan Forest as well. And we've been on the leaderboard several times with both of those projects. We'd like to put together a group at the Minnieville Dog Park if there's interest, and we're kind of recruiting for that now. We train every year, but there's also excellent resources for training right on the site. You can practice identifying forest arthropods and learn how to collect and record the data that the project is collecting. But even just for fun, you can play the games and test your knowledge of these arthropods and the different classes that they're in. Project goals include relating patterns of arthropod phenology to the timing of bird migration and reproduction. And obviously there's an effect, the effects of global warming on bird populations and insect populations is quite interesting. And if you find out the food that the birds are eating and when it's available, and obviously there's kind of a play on words there with the caterpillars count, but the caterpillars are juicy, you know, as opposed to the bugs as they change over time. But those juicy caterpillars do provide better food for the birds and the young. So that's why the caterpillars are part of that. But we also do the bugs and the beetles and ants and the whole bit.
Can we invite Ellen for a minute to tell us how the Merrimack Farm is doing?
Sure.
Nell, are you still there?
Are we putting her on the spot?
No, we talked to her earlier. She must have lost us. She said she was having problems with her.
No, I'm here. I'm here. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. My router is not good, and I've been going in and out. Well, I started. Susan recruited me 3 years ago, and I had a blast at Merrimack Farm. And we just did a little pilot and went once a month. And then last year during the pandemic, I started a program in my neighborhood, checking every week for arthropods on the trees in my neighborhood, and included quite a lot of neighbors got interested, especially children. And we had on our masks and went out and did very well last year. And this year we're a little slow getting rolling, but we're doing it again. And this year looks actually better for caterpillars than last year. But I live in Occoquan Forest, which is halfway between Manassas and Woodbridge. And if you would like to come and see how I set it up and participate, you're very welcome. We do it Sunday afternoons 2 to about 5. And maybe I can inspire you to start it in your own community.
So now, how is Merrimack Farm doing?
Merrimack Farm?
What's the data on that?
I'll have to look at that. I think they're doing pretty well. They're still, they're on the leaderboard, like maybe 6th or so. And they've done, I'm gonna have to look it up. Just a second. The one thing that's really fun is that every week, the Caterpillars Count will send you data on what you have achieved, like how many caterpillars, how many arthropods, how many surveys you've done, and it's kind of fun to keep track. And they have beautiful graphics. So let me look at this up just a second, and I'll tell you the data. Okay, so in the last, this season, there are 4 users, there are 86 surveys, 13 arthropod groups, and by groups it means spiders and statty longlegs, and that's quite a lot of groups. And they found 184 arthropods and 21 caterpillars. So they're really going great guns now at Merrimack Farm, and they are on the leaderboard. So they're doing well. Now, let's see if I can show you. This shows all the sites in the U.S. that are actually doing it. And this has grown over the last 3 years. The project's really gotten a lot of uptake all over. So,
and this year, and for the last 3 years, we've just been doing deciduous trees, but they're adding to that, and you can actually do, you know, some of the conifers as well. So they're expanding the project in that way. And this is the beat sheet that we actually use. If you can see that on the slide, that's how we collect to survey the different arthropods.
That's not the beat sheet, sorry. Okay. All right, so we're going to go into environmental projects. So I See Change is a crowdsourcing project to allow citizens to take pictures of events that are not in the norm and to have a platform for discussion. It's pretty new, and I recommend checking it out. They are becoming worldwide actually now. They just started, I think, in the West. All right, and Frog Watch. Frogs and toads also play an important role serving as both prey and predator. In wetland ecosystems, they are considered indicators of environmental health. Many previously abundant frog and toad populations have experienced dramatic population declines both in the United States and around the world, and it's essential that scientists understand the scope, geographic scale, and cause of these declines. We'll send you a link to learn more about that. The volunteers of the foundation of the Frog Watch USA community, these trained individuals listen for frogs and toads during evenings from February through August and submit these observations to a national online database. Monitoring through Frog Watch USA can be an enriching experience that allows one to connect with nature and also contribute to amphibian conservation efforts. So I'll send you the link if you guys are interested in checking that out. That's a worthwhile project. And then we have Budburst, a community-focused, data-driven approach to plant conservation. It's brought to you by the Chicago Botanic Garden. A large part of Budburst research focuses on how climate change affects plants. We collect long-term phenology data to answer a variety of questions, such as, how do different species respond to a changing climate? Do species respond similarly across their range? And do native and invasive species respond differently? Okay, water quality projects. We are on to Jess.
Thank you, Lisa. And good evening, everyone. So I'm Jess Mccauley with the Prince William Soil and Water Conservation District. I'm very excited to talk to you all about our water quality programs. So we have 4 separate water quality programs in the county. The mission of these programs is to promote water quality awareness, education, and citizen science in Prince William County. Data from the programs support the county government and other agencies and organizations in line with the Clean Water Act as required by the EPA. We have the Floatable Monitoring Program, the Adopt a Stream/Pond Program, Biological Monitoring Program, and the Chemical Monitoring Program. So the Floatable Monitoring Program is part of the county's MS4 permit. Staff collect trash from specific waterways, and the county uses this data for assessments and reports. The county sends a report every 2 years, sharing this data with the Department of Environmental Quality and the EPA as part of the Clean Water Act. The Adopt a Stream/Pond program is one of our biggest citizen science programs. The county uses the data for assessment of the bay improvement efforts. Earth Team also uses the Adopt a Stream data in their natural resource conservation efforts. And we have a recent engagement with Clean Virginia Waterways and the Virginia Plastic Pollution Prevention Network to work towards marine debris reduction in the bay, all relying on data collected by volunteers. So in the Adopt a Stream program, volunteers can either choose or we find them a section of stream, pond, lake, or river. They agree to pick up litter from that section 1 to 2 times a year, and then they send us their findings. We provide all the necessary supplies like trash bags, safety vests, gloves, and litter grabbers, and we coordinate with Public Works to haul away trash bags from that site. So you can see some of our data from 2016 to 2020. In 2016, we started with 343 volunteers, and the program was gaining momentum and support, and you can see at its peak in 2019, we had 1,616 volunteers. This dropped by almost a third in 2020 when we only had 586 volunteers. Our total number of volunteers from 2016 to 2020 was 4,626. During that time, these volunteers worked a total of 15,485 hours, averaging a little over 3 hours of work per volunteer. And we found that these volunteers saved county taxpayers $391,000 over those years. These amazing volunteers helped remove a total of 124,452 pounds of trash from our county's waterways. So that's pretty amazing. And then our biological monitoring program, that's a fun family-friendly program where volunteers go out to a stream and they dip a net in the water to collect macroinvertebrates. Macroinvertebrates are little critters you can see with your naked eye that live on the bottom of stream beds. Certain species of macros are water quality indicators, and their presence or absence can actually tell us how clean or impaired the water is. So citizens collect and send the stream data to the DEQ through the local Save Our Streams program. Anyone can participate in those activities, but only a certified water quality monitor can send the data to DEQ. Certified monitors collect data from their site 4 times a year. There are hundreds of Virginia Save Our Streams volunteers who collect stream quality data from over 200 stream sites across the state. Having that site-specific and timely water quality information allows the DEQ to identify pollution problems, determine how to restore streams, and measure the success of restoration efforts. And then our last one, we have the chemical monitoring program, which entails the use of a YSI Pro DSS chemical monitoring probe. Volunteers visit multiple sites throughout the county, some of which are chosen by DEQ, and they collect data on chemical parameters such as conductivity, pH, and dissolved oxygen. This data goes to the DEQ as part of its Clean Water Act efforts. We then submit it through the Chesapeake Bay Monitoring Cooperative as part of the Chesapeake Bay Alliance. The chemical data collected by volunteers is also reported to the Natural Resource Conservation Earth Team program. So if you're interested in becoming a citizen scientist with the district, I will put the link to our water quality programs in the chat box, as well as my email address and Veronica Tangiri's email. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And thank you everyone for listening. I wish you all the best of luck with your citizen science endeavors.
Thank you, Jess. That was great. Okay, so we're going to move on to Globe Observer. So
yeah, if you want to move on to the next slide there. So Globe Observer is part of this larger program that's been around, you know, as Susan mentioned, she did it many years ago. It's been around since 1995. It was really very strongly focused in education initially, that training teachers to do citizen science data collection with their students, although that term was not really as much in use back in 1995. I think it existed, but was not as common. And it's actually, you know, you can see there, and actually this is slightly out of date. I think we're up to 127 countries now. That we're active in around the world, and a bunch of different scientific protocols, actually water quality and some of the things that were just mentioned, things like soil moisture, things like phenology, green up, green down, atmosphere protocols, you know, a bunch of different protocols, but many of them required a lot more training, or the instrument boxes that Susan mentioned, you know, a little bit more of a heavy lift to set up that not everybody's going to be able to do. But of course, now we're taking advantage of the technology. So a few years ago, I guess we're almost up to 5 years now, we launched the Globe Observer app. And so these are the 4 tools that we have in the app. And the idea is to take those of the Globe protocols that would really be enhanced by having the phone technology, specifically the ability to locate yourself and to take pictures. So clouds is the most popular. That was the first one we put in the app, and it continues to be the most popular. I'm going to talk about some of the research that's been being done with that in a little bit. But so basically the idea is that you take pictures of the clouds and you identify what types of clouds you see, the cloud cover you see, sky color, sky conditions, and the app walks you through how to do that. So you don't have to do a lot of training ahead of time. All the training, all the guidance is within the app. And that's really the, the power of being able to have these, these phones that we carry around in our pockets and have, more computing power than than it took to go to send men to the moon. Then we have Mosquito Habitat Mapper. That's looking for standing water areas there might be mosquito larvae, and looking for the larvae. And then if you get a little clip-on attachment to your phone, you can actually magnify the larvae and try to identify the type of larvae that they are. We actually have a mosquito habitat photo challenge coming up. Starting in July. There's more information on our website, which is on the resource list. I didn't call out the challenge specifically, but you can find a link for it on our website. Then we have land cover that, again, is the basic idea is still based on photographs. You're getting your location, you're taking photographs all directions around you. And then you notice the adopt a pixel there. That's based on a kind of an earlier collaboration with USGS, the idea of a pixel being what the satellite sees from space. So all of these have some kind of connection to NASA satellite data as well. NASA is the primary sponsor for the GLOBE program, although not the sole government sponsor, but NASA is the primary sponsor and kind of the overseeing organization for GLOBE. But so taking pictures and then matching it up to satellite data, we do that with clouds. It's actually the most direct with clouds. Also going to talk a little bit more about that. And then, there was a mention of trees when we first came in and some other things talking about trees. What GLOBE Trees allows you to do is actually to measure the height of the trees. It uses that you can get the angle with your phone pointing to the bottom of the tree and to the top of the tree, and then count your steps to the tree, and the app will calculate an estimate of the height of that tree. And so that's useful for estimates of biomass and all sorts of other interesting things, and even can be compared to satellite data of tree height from the ISAT-2 satellite, for example. So we're using the technology to be able to help people collect data more easily, and that's kind of the basic idea. So next slide, please. So just a little bit more focus on clouds, and these slides came from Marilé Colón Robles, who is the project scientist for NASA GLOBE Clouds down at NASA Langley Research Center. But so one of the things that ground observers can provide that sometimes can be harder for satellites is identification of what is a cloud or not. So on the left is kind of a visible image, but you can't tell so much what are the clouds and what is maybe ice or snow on the ground. Now the right is infrared. You can see some differences there. You can see where the clouds are versus the ground. But the advantage of the viewpoint of a ground observer is, you look up, it's clouds, you look down, it's snow cover. You can tell the difference very easily. So one of the, and that different vantage point can be really helpful for verifying satellite measurements and just filling in gaps, things that the satellites don't see very well. And I've got a few more examples of that later too. So next up. And I'm focusing on clouds because that is the most popular. There's great science connections for the other ones too. Not quite as much research done yet. The GLOBE Clouds team has been really proactive about that, but we're working on it. So the satellite matches. So this is an example of why it's so helpful to have these ground observations. So you can see the satellite image on the left there, lots of cloud cover. You can't really see what's going on under the clouds. However, from this ground observation from an observer in Australia, you can see the dust that is underneath the layer of clouds. And that's something that would not be visible to the satellite. So that's data that can't be collected easily in other ways. So this is adding value to the satellite imagery from that ground perspective. So next slide. And we do, if you take an observation within 15 minutes of a satellite overpass, which honestly with geostationary satellites is quite a pretty large percentage of the clouds observations get a satellite match. So that chart you see on the far left is what you would get in your email if you go and take a clouds observation. There you can check in the app for when the satellites are passing over your location, and take your observation. And then those columns, there's one column for your ground observation and then other columns for the matches to the satellite that we're passing over within 15 minutes of your observation. So we do look at some of the geostationary satellites. We look at some of that series logo there is Cloud and Earth's Radiant Energy System is what that instrument is called. So we compare to, that's on a few different satellites, Aqua, Terra, And then in the middle there is a really cool one called Calypso. That one you don't match to as often, but that one actually uses LiDAR and it can actually see more of what vertically is happening in the clouds, and can see really interesting, dust at different levels and clouds at different levels. That has a really narrow path, so that's ones you don't match to as often. But so the key is to make those connections to the NASA data and the NASA researchers. So next up. So this is an example of one of the papers that was published by about the eclipse. We had a big effort for the total solar eclipse in 2017. We had about 10,000 observers that took observations with the Globe Observer app. So we got over 20,000 cloud observations and over 80,000 air temperature measurements. We opened up a special tool in the app so people could also take air temperature measurements during the eclipse. And so this was a paper, and this link is on our publications page, which is on the resource document that you're going to be sent later, but really looking in detail about the comparison between globe observations and the meteorological station. So you can see some of the plus and minuses that that Dr. Brent Dodson looked at in this paper. I think the biggest one, as we've talked about, is a lot of observers in a lot of places that you don't otherwise have observations. That's true of this, that's true of a lot of citizen scientists. In the case of an eclipse, you can actually move into the path of totality, unlike the meteorological stations. Fewer of them there that you can't, a lot of them are fixed, aren't going anywhere. There are portable stations, but the highly calibrated ones are often very fixed in a given location. Challenges, of course, are quality control. How do you ensure that the observations are, people are accurate in their observations? And then maybe not so many observations per observer, whereas you've got a lot more from the meteorological stations. So it's, it's a scientific paper, but it's reasonably readable as far as that goes, and really looks at the differences between these. And I think, concludes that there are places for both types of data. And I think I have some more graphs from his in a little bit, but I think the key point is that, it's not about whether one is better or worse. It's that you have different strengths and weaknesses, and it depends on what you're trying to research. And sometimes Globe can fill in gaps with the citizen science observations that you wouldn't get in another way. So if you go ahead to the next one for me, Lisa. Yeah, I think so. This is also from the same paper that he actually looked at that's showing the air temperature drop, that you can see the dip in that data based on how much cloud cover there was reported by the observers. So you can see in the clear sky, kind of that upper left, a much more distinctive drop in temperature compared to like an overcast area where you're getting much less drop in temperature when it's overcast. So, just the eclipse was a really neat opportunity because people got so excited about it. So we got a really good concentration of data. So we could do some really interesting things with that data. Next one, please. And then the same, so this is actually the same researcher, Dr. Brent Dodson, has also looked at some of the data, looking at the cloud cover as reported by observers on the ground and the satellites in orbit. And so you can see kind of similar. One thing that's kind of interesting to note in this, and I guess I don't have the paper name on it, this one is also on our publications page. This one had to do with some of our clouds challenges that we've run. So again, trying to get concentrated data similar to a BioBlitz or something like that, but a month-long challenge where you're trying to get a whole bunch of data all at once that can be then better for analysis. You can do some different quality checks with it. But if you notice, on the left-hand one from the observers on the ground, if you notice each of those sets of graphs for the different regions, so those are the different regions by the globe regions that are designated, and then DRK is the Drake Passage. We had actually a ship that with some observers on an Antarctic cruise. But notice that the left-hand bar is the highest. Those are the low-level clouds. The ground observer is seeing the low-level, or can see more easily those low-level clouds. Whereas the satellite observations on the right-hand side, if you notice the right two bars, sometimes it's the middle, sometimes it's the far right, are the one that are showing the higher cloud cover. So that again points out this difference between what the satellites are seeing. They're seeing the top first and they miss some of the clouds underneath. The ground observer is seeing the bottom up, so they're seeing the bottom clouds may not see the higher clouds, but it's really in combination we can get a better, fuller picture of what that vertical cloud structure looks like. So this is really how this dovetails and fits together well. Another example of a specific thing to look for, dust storms. These are a couple of researchers that Marle has been working with and asking people, oh, back one to the dust, yep, asking people to take pictures of dust, because again, we had that haboob, but this is an area, this is something that's not always as visible from satellites. And so having those ground observations can be really powerful. So what we're trying to do, and I'm based at NASA Goddard, we have people at NASA Langley and also at Jet Propulsion Laboratory are kind of our main areas, but really trying to make connections to scientists so that to encourage them to use the data and figure out, are there small tweaks we can make to the way people are taking observations to collect the data that they need. So normally for clouds data, you're kind of going up at 14 degrees up because you don't really want the horizon, you want the clouds. But for dust, we ask people to, oh, no, take it down, look more at the horizon. That's where we want the pictures. So, it's a tiny tweak in the protocol. You're still getting the sky, but now you're also getting enough of the horizon to see things like the dust. So we're always looking for opportunities like that. And I think next up, this is a kind of recent one, the terminator problem. So it can actually be very challenging for satellites to make observations of clouds right along the terminator, the edge between daylight and darkness. That can be a difficult place for satellites to differentiate between cloud types. So this is actually a current call that we're looking for observations right near sunrise or sunset with the sun very low and close to the horizon. So within an hour after sunrise or an hour before sunset, and getting those cloud observations with the sun at a low angle. And then that can be compared to the satellite data and help improve the algorithms that tell us what types of clouds we're seeing right at that edge of darkness and light. And I think, fun to be able to reference the terminator as well. And I don't think I put anything in about this. Go ahead to the next one, Lisa. Yeah, so I didn't put anything in this, but Zooniverse was mentioned earlier, and that we actually are working. There's a project that recently got funded to called Cloud Gaze that will actually take the photographs taken by observers and do some secondary cloud classification with the crowdsourcing from Zooniverse. So to verify some of the observations and maybe add some additional details that the original observer didn't add. And also, even though, of course, I'm a proponent of Globe Observer, I think it's great, but there's so many other great projects out there. And I think you can think of them as, just like the ground observers and the satellites are kind of fitting together and filling in gaps that one and the other projects can do the same thing. So for example, one of my favorites is iNaturalist. I love iNaturalist. iNaturalist is really focused on the detailed species level observations. Something like Globe Observer Land Cover is much more focused on the big picture observation. So if you think about those as working together really well, you can use iNaturalist to identify some of the species and then take a land cover picture to get the big view, or use iNaturalist to identify a type of tree that you want to measure, and then use Globe Observer to actually measure the height of the tree and kind of put those things back and forth. Now, there's not an official connection, so you'd really just be putting notes in the field notes saying, oh, iNaturalist told me this tree was an oak or whatever it is. Or in iNaturalist, you could make a note, I used Globe Observer, the height of this tree was 10 meters, whatever it is. So it's not a formal connection, but it's still a way to use all of the tools available to really tell the full story. And I think that can be the power of combining these different programs. And then to get to these other citizen science, so NASA has a bunch of citizen science projects. The link to the full NASA citizen science page is on the resources list. These are a few that I think are kind of fun. These are by no means all of them, but Landslide Reporter, the idea is that you are either reporting landslides that you see in person or online to a global NASA database of landslides events. My former boss with the satellite mission I used to work for, this is her project. She uses satellite data to help predict areas at risk of landslides. And so this is finding those reports on the ground. Floating forests has to do with studying kelp forests and satellite imagery, so that's a kind of neat one. This one I love, mapping application for penguin populations and projected dynamics, mapped. That you look for penguin colonies in satellite image often because their poop discolors the snow or the ice. So you can actually see penguin populations because of penguin poop, which I think they have some other techniques as well, but that's the most entertaining one. NemoNet is a kind of fun gamified one that's looking at the health of coral reefs around the world by using, again, images, satellite imagery. That's the fluid cam instrument, and you actually like draw around where the reefs are in the images. This detective is more astrophysics, looking at telescope images and looking for disks around nearby stars where planets could be. Backworld's Planet 9 is similar, looking for brown dwarfs and planets around in the beyond Neptune. JunoCam images from an imager that's orbiting Jupiter, and you can help analyze those images. And then Aurorasaurus is one that I have not yet had a chance to use because it's too far south most of the time to see auroras here in Maryland, and for you as well, but in Virginia. But that one is you can report on auroras if you see auroras. So sometime I will go to a place far enough north or south that I will be able to use Aurorasaurus. So that's just a small sampling, some of my favorite ones, but there's a lot more that you can find on the NASA Citizen Science landing page. And I think that was my last one unless we have some questions later.
Yeah, we'll do questions in a few minutes, and we just have a couple more. Thank you. I am just like so excited. I can't wait to check these out. For the auroras, 30 years ago, my husband and I were camping on the south part near Buffalo of Lake Ontario, and the aurora borealis happened when we were camping that night. It was super cold, and we kept on going outside the tent and looking, and we didn't get any sleep that night. It was stunning. And we thought it was the haze from Toronto, and then it turned red, and then it turned green, and then it kept
Oh, that's awesome.
colors. So yeah, that was a sleepless night, but it was really, really cool.
Worth it though. Sometimes you have to sacrifice for science.
Absolutely. Okay, so engaging your kids and grandkids, find things that you're interested in. Follow your own interests and your passions, not just theirs. You might be able to get them interested in getting involved in different things. If you're interested in space, visit the NASA site, like she just showed us. So we have a meetup group called Wild Things in Prince William County, and we also have a project on iNaturalist that is Project Prince William Wild Things. So if you're using iNaturalist, please join our project for observations in Prince William County. And we have a nature day at Prince William Forest Park coming up. There's a bird walk, and then we're doing an iNaturalist style scavenger hunt after the bird walk. So you all are invited to join us, and there'll be a link on the resources page on how to get involved with that. I'd like to thank all of our speakers and all of you for coming today. This has been absolutely great and very entertaining and interesting for me too, to have our guests join us today. And thank you. This was terrific. And if you guys have any questions, this is the time to share. And Ashley, can you look at the chat and let us know what happened there?
Sure. So,
go
ahead now.
Now, for the Prince William Wild Things, do I need to join the project every year? Or since I was doing it last year, is it automatically going to?
It should automatically be in there. Yeah.
It'll be in there already. I don't need to do anything to add myself. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we have, we're like to 18,000 observations, I think, in Prince William County for iNaturalist. So we've gotten a good amount of participation. The hope is once we do more of the Wild Things safaris that we'll do like a, I can't think of the name of the company that you can make the t-shirts, and then people can buy t-shirts that says I'm a wild thing and that kind of thing. Oh, so that's our hope for the future, and then maybe get some sponsors to have their logos on it with it and that kind of thing.
That sounds great. Any other questions? questions. We covered a lot of ground and saw a lot of really fascinating projects running from biodiversity to earth science to stream water quality. So there's certainly a plethora of opportunities to get involved. So if there are any questions, or if you would like to share a story about how that you've participated in a citizen science project or community science project, that'd be great to hear that too. And also for the caterpillar count, Lisa, if folks would like to participate in that, I'll just include your email in the follow-up and they can reach out to you directly.
We'll have it in the resource page that you guys can send out tomorrow.
Perfect.
So yeah, the Caterpillar Counts project, we're hoping to get that launched in quite a few areas in Prince William County. Manassas Battlefield said we couldn't do it this year because they have a team from the university doing a survey. So they didn't want us disrupting the caterpillars. They said next year we can do it at the battlefield, and hopefully Prince William Forest Park will let us do one there. They'd be really great if we could just see about getting something done in every neighborhood, just little teams all over.
I have a quick question maybe for Kristen. It might be too soon to really know, because I know, these types of citizen science or community science projects are really good to either, have really long-term data sets, or when you want to cover a large geographic region. And I was curious how the pandemic potentially impacted some of those projects, because I know that some of them had to close down for a time. Were citizen scientists able to kind of fill in those gaps, or I'm sure it's varied depending on the project, but I was just wondering if you had any insight about that.
Yeah, it was interesting. So we had planned to do a trees challenge in April last year that, of course, got completely canceled. Like, we weren't promoting it or anything. But interestingly enough, even though we were very careful in all of our social media to try to give people other things they could do, we have a whole series of activities, learning activities. We did some, NASA did a whole NASA at Home series about, if you can't get outside, here's some activities you can do to learn science at home. But we actually still had, even though we weren't encouraging people, and we were always saying, follow your local guidelines, don't do anything you shouldn't be doing, in a little more formal language. We still actually got, I think we increased our observations last year, actually. So it's continuing to go up. We continue to get new observers. So, I think in some ways, I'm sure there were some impacts. I think the nice thing about Globe Observer is it is something you can do pretty independently. I think and definitely clouds is one that I'm not sure our numbers were up as much for trees and land cover, because clouds is one that you can do very easily just by stepping right outside your house. You don't have to go very far. You can do a land cover observation there, but you're not going to want to take the same land covers. I mean, maybe every couple months you want to take a picture of your yard and see the changing seasons, but you're not going to do it every day. It's not going to change that much. Whereas clouds, you could take an observation, once an hour, and you're going to see different clouds. So it didn't have as much of an impact as we thought it would, to be honest. I'm not sure I know that wasn't true of all projects. I think we were lucky because it is app-based and something that can be done very independently. You don't have to be in a group. You're not going out all to the same place. You can go and be distanced. So we did not have as much impact as we expected.
So you guys had a challenge not so long ago that to have people go out for, what was it, 8 or 12-hour period and take a picture every hour?
That we weren't having people do that. I mean, I
think I don't know, maybe it was almost could have been 6 months ago, but it was there was a challenge in that if you did that, there was going to be a badge or something, but it was doing the cloud pictures 1 an hour.
Well, I don't think we've ever said only 1 an hour or 1 an hour. I think we said was when we've done challenges in the past where we've actually done a leaderboard, we say, I think, not more than 10 observations a day, but we're not really necessarily saying you have to go out every hour. It's just what we found was what we didn't want is people to go and take 10 observations in 10 minutes or something like that, just to rank up their points on the leaderboard. So that's why it wasn't necessarily that we're saying, just we didn't want people to just go out and just do the same observation a bunch of times to get to get higher ranked. That would have been before the cloud challenges in the past we have done, and other challenges we have done a leaderboard where we look and see. We don't have a public one, but what we do is we see who are the top observers, and then we contact them and say, hey, do you want to be recognized by name or just be anonymous? But we didn't do that during for our challenge that happened, our cloud challenge that happened last summer, because we didn't want to encourage people to do things that might not be safe. We didn't want them to encourage them to go outside if they weren't supposed to be, because it is worldwide. I mean, I think it was a little bit more open in lots of parts of the US that you were able to go outside if you wanted to, but there were places in Italy, for example, where you were not supposed to go outside your house unless you were grocery shopping. So yeah, it was an interesting time to navigate. But I think on the other hand, it did provide something that teachers could have their students do on their own with their families at home, do cloud observations when they were doing school remotely and still participating in something together, even though everybody was logging in from their homes. So it does provide pretty nice flexibility as well.
I do it on my dog walk every day.
Yeah.
So, and it's really weird because from one hill, it's different than the other hill.
Yeah?
Yeah.
See, those are the things that you notice. And this is what I love about this. This is, I think, one of the things that it's not just, it's collecting data, but it's also helping people see things differently. That if you go out and take an observation every morning, you might notice patterns in the clouds. If you're in a coastal area and you see, clouds coming in at certain times of the day and often going out at the other times of the day, or, things like land cover, you might notice, I know it's a big thing where I grew up in Colorado, the north side of the slope and the south side of the slope have very different vegetation. And it can be a way to help people notice those things while also contributing observations that science can find useful.
Exactly. Thanks, Kristen. Any other questions or comments or fun stories to share? Well, this has been such a pleasure. We covered a lot of ground here, and thank you so much for Kristen for joining us. And I think everyone is much more fascinated about clouds than before. So thank you so much. And Jess and Susan and Lisa, thank you for just walking us through the variety and the resources to get involved. And so many are right here in Prince William County, which is phenomenal. And it's a great way to engage with the local environment and to build community through that too. The Prince William Conservation Alliance hosts the bluebird monitoring and the butterfly counts, and there's a lot of the caterpillar count will be up and coming, and I will share that with everyone in a follow-up.